Hello friends, Namaste, a very warm welcome to Unsarkari. In this third session, again we are going to take up very important concepts with respect to environment, that is abiotic factors and also adaptations. I am again reiterating the fact that it is very important to have conceptual clarity, and it is also very important for you to make your own short notes and then Google or use AI to have more contextual examples. It is purposefully not taking up a lot of examples which can help you, so that according to your need and also understanding, you can take some examples. This is in continuation of the first two sessions, which will help you to correlate and understand the whole theme of environment. Very important for the UPSC prelims examination. Abiotic environmental factors. Abiotic is the key word here, characterized by physical and chemical factors. So just close your eyes and try to understand what all you will bring into physical and chemical factors. Light, temperature, rainfall, pressure, pH, and the content of oxygen and other gases. Similarly, you can think of more abiotic factors also. Now these factors, they exhibit diurnal, nocturnal, seasonal, and even annual changes. That means they are not static. They are static in a way, but then when the degree changes, the impact also changes. Now let's see what is biotic component. The key word is biotic. So biotic component includes all living organisms which interact with each other and with abiotic components also. That means there is a constant interaction of living organisms with the physical or abiotic factors, that is air, land, water. And it is actually leading to creation of a giant or a vast ecosystem called ecosphere or biosphere, which we have already discussed in the last interaction, which is the largest, and most importantly, this is a self-sufficient biological system. So now on the top of it, think about forest cover. On the top of it, think about concretization. On the top of it, think about the percentage of forest which is mandated. On the top of it, think about schemes like compensatory afforestation scheme. On the top of it, also think about why we keep on speaking that climate change is happening because of the rise in temperature and because of anthropogenic activities. Now let's see the types of abiotic factors. The distribution, abundance, growth and reproduction of organisms, including their individual members, it is controlled by certain factors which are called ecological factors. Certain species will get extinct, certain species will be more in number, certain species are going to dominate. Now this is all going to change the balance of ecosystem, which is very, very important for continuation of Earth as a diverse planet. So environmental factors are many. But what is an environmental factor? It is an external force or condition which surrounds and affects the life of organism in any way. Any way. So, as we just discussed, what can be those? Climatic factors, light, temperature, water, atmosphere, gases and wind, and most importantly, fire also. When we think about water, in water you will have atmospheric water, rainfall, precipitation, soil moisture, and even what is the level of humidity and so on. They are also important. Now just think about India. It has been divided into different agroclimatic zones, and there are different kind of forests in India. Think about desert, think about xerophytes, think about temperate forest, think about evergreen forest in deep south or in Andamans, think about Himalayan landscape and also ecosystem, and think about Western Ghats, and even in that perspective think about laterite soil and so forth. You will be able to appreciate the same, and also distribution of different wildlife sanctuaries and national parks and tiger reserves all over India. Do have a look and correlate. When we say topographic or physiographic factors, as I just said, altitude becomes important. Direction of the mountain chain and valleys also plays a very important role. Steepness and exposure of slopes is very, very important. And Edaphic factors like soil formation, physical and chemical properties of soil and nutrients are also important part. Similarly, there are some elements which are required in relatively large quantities. They are the fundamental building blocks of organic tissues and they are called macronutrients. Other are required in much lesser quantities. They are called micronutrients, and some are required in very trace amount. They are called trace elements. So these are the three levels. And when we say macro elements, please remember this list of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, calcium, magnesium, and sulfur. Whereas micronutrients, they are relatively required in smaller quantities like iron, manganese, boron, molybdenum, copper, zinc, and chlorine. And whereas some are required in relatively small quantities in certain species, not in all. So you have sodium, you have vanadium, cobalt, iodine, selenium, silicon, fluorine, and barium. Therefore, when we see the effect of temperature on plant and animals, all the topics, all the ideas which we have discussed till now, they are going to impact. There are actually studies done on the effects of temperature on living organisms. Let's see what is the relationship between temperature and cell. Because the maximum and minimum temperature is going to have a lethal effects on cells and their components, and same is true for human species also. So if it is too cold, the cell proteins may be destroyed as ice forms. Or when the water is lost, electrolytes becomes concentrated in the cells and heat coagulates proteins. So that means end of life. Many metabolic activities of microbes, plants and animals are regulated by various kinds of enzymes even in human body, and these enzymes in turns are influenced by temperature. Same is true for human beings. That's why we talk about heat stress. We talk about loo. We talk about urban heat islands and consequent deaths also. Consequently, increasing in temperature beyond a certain limit is also going to increase enzymatic activity, resulting in the increased rate of metabolism and thereby hampering everyday life. When we see temperature and reproduction, maturation of gonads, gametogenesis, and liberation of gametes also take place at a specific temperature. Same is true for human species also. Some species breed uniformly through the year. Some are only breeding in summer or in winter. Some are having two breeding periods, maybe one in spring, another in fall. So therefore, temperature is determining the breeding seasons of mostly all organisms. Whereas temperature and sex ratio is concerned, in certain animals and environmental temperature, we can say sex ratio is linked with what kind of temperature is there. That means what is the mean temperature. And here is an example of Xenosylla chiopis. Males outnumber females on certain days when the mean temperature is between 20 to 25 degrees centigrade. Same is true for other species also. Temperature and ontogenetic development is concerned. Temperature influences the speed and success of development of poikilothermic animals. Those animals which are influenced by the outer heat stress or outer temperature. When the outer temperature varies, they are also trying to adapt and adjust with that temperature. So the complete development of eggs and larvae is more rapid in warm temperature. That is why we say that climate change is actually impacting all species on Earth. Similarly, the growth rate of different animals and plants is also influenced by temperature. For example, adult trouts do not feed much and do not grow until the water is warmer than 10 degrees centigrade. Likewise, oyster, the length of the body increases when the temperature is increased from 10 degrees centigrade to 20 degrees centigrade. Sea urchin is also showing maximum size in warmer waters. Coral flourish in well in those water which contain water below 21 degrees centigrade. So here is an what we can say is an empirical evidence. Whereas temperature and coloration is concerned, it is also influenced by temperature. In warm and humid climates, many animals, even insects and birds, they bear darker pigmentation than the species which are found in the cool and dry climates. We know this, but I'm just trying to emphasize. This is known as Gloger rule. So ermine, also called stout, grows a white color coat in winters, whereas in summer it will be showing against the snow, as we can see in this picture. The temperature and morphology is also linked because the absolute size of an animal is also linked with the kind of temperature it is having. This is Boltzmann's rule. So birds and mammals, they attain greater body size when they are in cold regions than in warm regions. Colder regions harbor uh, larger species, but poikilotherms, as we just discussed previously also, they tend to be smaller in the colder regions. Body size is also significant because it is linked with the rate of heat loss. So the large wood rats, they will have selective advantage in cold climates because their surface to air ratio is greater, and there is more insulation which is permitting them to conserve the metabolic heat. We can take other examples also. Similarly, small size animals are favored in deserts because the extremities are there in terms of heat. and their body features like tail, ears and legs, they often appear to be shorter in the colder climates because they tend to minimize the heat loss as per Allen's rule. Moreover, the races of birds with relatively narrow and you can say more acuminate, that is, they become slender. Wings tend to be of different when we see the birds having in warmer climates tend to have broader wings. So again, just visualize that what kind of shape changes is taking place because of the changes in temperature and because of the habitat. So morphology of certain fishes is also an example where we find that the fishes also manifest same kind of differences when the different temperatures are there. Temperature and cyclomorphosis, when we speak about, that is relationship between the seasonal changes of temperature and the body. And in this context, one can say that there is variation in size because of the change in temperatures, even the head or even the helmet projections, and the organism tend to manifest such developments according to the temperature. So temperature and animal behavior is also linked. Temperature and animal distribution is also linked. We have proved that. What you have to do is take up the map, just try to see even the state birds in India, why they are named so, and you will find that there is a relationship between the temperature and also relationship between other abiotic factors which we have discussed till now. Thermal adaptation is also very important. For instance, the heat resistant spores, cysts and seeds is very important because it will be able to tolerate extremes of temperatures. For example, amoeba can tolerate temperature below 0 degrees centigrade. Similarly, rice seeds remain active even at 0 degrees centigrade and germinate at that temperature. That is very good. That is why we also look for drought resistant and heat resistant varieties of crops. Adaptation against frost. The starch plants changes to fats and oil in autumn. The fatty oils diminish the freezing point and it is increasing the power of resistance in plants against frost. And many leaves that grow in the coldest lands, they also store fats. So these are examples because in certain cases when they are having high moisture, they are retaining the power in the plants so that they can regenerate, they can survive. So the extremity of temperature is also reflected in context of seeds and plants, and nature had given them the capacity to survive. But in case of dried seeds, spores and cysts, they avoid freezing because there is no liquid in them because the water is removed from the tissue. So due to the removal of water from seeds, the cold resistance of seeds in certain plant increases up to the extent that their exposure for 3 weeks to 190 degrees centigrade is also not able to diminish their germinating property. They can germinate. Similarly, the two phenomena, one is called hibernation and estivation. In both the kind of phenomena, dormancy is there, metabolic rate becomes reduced and body temperature becomes low and heartbeat is also reduced. You just Google and find the difference between hibernation and estivation. I am giving you this assignment. Thermal migration is very important. Thermal migration is referred to that animals are looking forward to escape from the extremely hot and cold situations. Desert animals will look forward to such places where uh, they can they can escape and they can become nocturnal to avoid heat of the day. Similarly, frog, toads, and other amphibians, they make short trips into out of water, and this provides them desired cooling and warming to the animal. So North African jerboa or desert rat, it is living underground during the day to protect themselves from the burning rays of sun, and they come out and hunt in the cool at the night. But then due to climate change, we can see that the average difference in the temperature between day and night is becoming less. So situation is very, very precarious and it is difficult in the next coming decades to continue seeing the diversity, and consequences will be borne by human beings also. Let's see precipitation or rainfall. So moisture falling in an area in liquid, vapors or frozen form is called precipitation. We all know that, we have read in geography uh, textbooks. Precipitation includes all the moisture that comes to earth, whether it is in the form of rain, snow, hail or even dew. Now we agree that precipitation is the chief source of soil water. So due to water cycle or hydrological cycle, there is an interchange of water between the earth's surface and atmosphere. Now this cycle has got two very, very important events. What is called precipitation, another is called evapotranspiration. We will discuss that. So the eco factor of precipitation depends upon season, wind, air, pressure and temperature. This can be asked in the prelims. So precipitation occurs because of cooling and condensation of water vapor at high altitudes. The low temperature at high altitudes cools the air, which gets saturated, and it is losing its water holding capacity. It cannot hold water, As the temperature start falling, water vapor condenses and fall as rain due to gravity. Now this is the whole concept which may be asked in the prelims exam also. Depending upon the environmental conditions, precipitation falls as hail, snow or rain. And in winter, the ground temperature falls. As a result, atmospheric pressure vapors also get condensed as a dew or frost on surfaces of objects, plants and soils, as we have seen number of times. So this concept is very important to understand the impact and also relationship. Here is the water cycle. You can start seeing from anywhere. For example, this is the groundwater flow. And then when the evaporation is taking place, this is condensation. And then after condensation, this is transportation and then precipitation finally happening. Again, the same methodology, if we see here, then there is a plant uptake of water, there is a surface flow of water, there is transpiration, there is sublimation, and after that there is condensation taking place, and then precipitation and slow melt runoff is there. Then again water is coming on the surface, and then infiltration, percolation, and this is whole. This is very, very important to understand in context of understanding how the whole system works. So evapotranspiration means evaporation plus transpiration. Loss of water from plants such as trees and grasses. It is transpiration, and evaporation is loss of water from water bodies. So together these two events, evapotranspiration is very, very important. In winter, the ground temperature falls as a result, and atmospheric vapor get condensed as a dew or frost, as I just said, on the surfaces of objects. Dew becomes an important source of moisture, very, very important source of moisture to note in context of plants in winter season. So what is drizzle? It involves minute drops appearing as to float in air. Rain, drops of liquid which are larger than drizzle and also heavier. Snow is the moisture as solid state. Sleet, form of small grains and pellets of rice, and hail is the ball and lumps of ice. I have given you here all the four. You can see them, and you can also look forward to which areas there in India where all these different phenomena are visible in certain parts of year. In India, rains are caused by monsoons. We know that. What is monsoon? It is a special pattern of moist air movement. During the monsoon, air masses moving from the Arabian Sea to the west coast of India and from the Bay of Bengal to the eastern part of the country, and the whole area becomes extremely moist. About 45% of the water available during annual precipitation flows into the river, 20% percolates in the ground. These are not exact figures, these are just approximation, and the remaining 35% is lost by evaporation. The areas with heavy rainfall during summer and low during winter are characterized by presence of grasslands. The region where rainfall is scanty, they will be seen with deserts and xerophytic vegetation. We already discussed that an average rainfall of India is 117 centimeters, is one of the highest in the world. And if the rainfall to evaporation ratio is 0 or less, what will happen? Desert will develop. Grassland will develop when the ratio is more than 0.2 and less than 1, and the forest will develop when the ratio is more than 1. So you can just understand such a crucial and important role of water. So often in forest, the floor receives rain from trees in the form of drips from the trees leaves during accumulation of condensed water in the winter mornings. So such important phenomena, but less visible to us. Let's talk about humidity, because in context of humidity, the atmospheric moisture in the form of invisible vapor is called humidity. The humidity of air is expressed in terms of values of relative humidity, which is the amount of moisture in air as a percentage of the amount of air the, the air can hold, amount which the air can hold at saturation at the existing temperature. So relative humidity is measured by psychrometer or a paper strip hygrometer or thermohydrograph. Humidity will be impacted by different factors, for example, solar radiation, temperature, altitude, wind, exposure, and water status of soil also. High temperature increases the capacity of air to retain more moisture and results in a lower relative humidity. So you can think of that in North India during the rainy season, when temperature is also high, but then it becomes more, what I can say, it becomes more moist. Then we feel a lot humidity is there in the air. Low temperature results in higher relative humidity by decreasing the capacity of air for moisture and reaches 100% saturation point. Further cooling results in condensation of vapor into water, and this temperature moisture point is called dew point. We have already discussed that. Now let's see another factor, that is fire. Fire is an interesting eco factor, common occurrence in all natural vegetation all across the world, and drier habitats witness more fire than the lesser ones. Lightning is one of the most common and natural cause of fire initiation. Other are abrasive effects of falling rocks or dried plant materials such as bamboos, and spontaneous combination of very dry hot material, or even by volcanic activities. Most forest fires in these days and in these decades are man-made, that is by incinerism. that is by poachers or by debris burners, smokers, campers, or short circuiting of high tension wires, or even by the nearby railway lines can also facilitate the same. For example, in Meghalaya region where jhum cultivation is practiced periodically, slash and burn is used. That means the area is used for agriculture and then later it is burned down, burning them and raising crops on the ash enriched soil for a few years and they move to the another segment of forest as the earlier one become eroded and nutrient deficient. Types of fire: ground fires, which are developing in conditions where organic matter, that is litter, is accumulating, and they catch fire generally when the things are lying down for a longer time period and the fire is slow. With its heat, the inner parts of the little heap and also get dried and fire continue for a longer period. That is ground fire. Surface fire, which is sweeping ground surface rapidly, and the flame consumes the litter, living herbaceous vegetation, shrubs, and tree bases are also coming under it. So surface fire in context of a national forest in Florida, occasional fires like this burn dead wood, undergrowth, litter. They help prevent more destructive ground fires. So what we can say is ground fire are a simpler version. Surface fires becomes more pronounced and they are more widespread, and whereas ground fires are most disastrous because the burning of the whole forest canopy, and it is taking place mostly in dense woody vegetations. They spread in the top layer of the canopy of one tree to the canopy of another one. Canopy fires produce a temperature up to 700 degrees centigrade, killing the trees, shrubs, and herbs. But in the moist soil surface, underground plant parts, buried seed can escape the death. You can see we have an illustrated example over here how the ground, surface, and even crown they act. So fire causes injury to some plants, resulting in scars on their stems. Such scars may serve as a suitable avenue of entry of parasitic fungi and insects. Fire is also arresting the future course of succession and it is modifying the edaphic environment very much. It is bringing about distinctive changes such as light, rainfall, nutrient cycles, fertility, soil, litter, humus content, pH, water holding capacity, soil, fauna, everything gets changes. And the soil fungi are reduced while bacteria increase, remember that, due to post fire changes in the soil. So the microclimate is changed, we agree with that, and there is addition of ash, loss of shade, loss of raindrop interception, and accelerated erosion. Very, very important that what happens when the fire happens. This can be asked in the prelims. You have to understand it very, very correctly. Fire plays an important role in removal of competition for survival species. Fire tolerant species generally increase in abundance at the expense of those which are killed by fire, because there are many plants which are fire sensitive plants and they will be reduced in number. So there is less competition. And some plants such as Populus tremolodis or Epilobium are stimulated to growth by fires. A number of grasses are also like that. They are stimulated by fire to produce large quantities of seeds. In some grasses and legumes, the seed would germinate only after they get fire treatment. So you can see how are the ways of nature. Some fungi, mainly Ascomycetes, they grow in soils of burnt areas. Such fungi are known as pyrophilus. So names may not come, but you have to know the popular name and you have to understand the nature of fire, and then you have to see that in India also there are different regions which keep on getting fire. Uttarakhand we read about, then we read about in Telangana, and also we read about in West Bengal. So you can just relate with that. So in frequent fire prone areas, certain plant developed adaptations. What are that? Certain trees, particularly conifers such as pinus and larix and dicots, they develop fire resistant bark which insulates them from heat. These trees also have tall trunk and crown is restricted to upper zone only. Therefore, they are escaping the destruction against surface and ground fires. In some plants, leaves become fire resistant due to poor contents of such compounds such as resin or oil. It will become less, so they will also check surface fires. Some plants like eucalyptus have an adventitious or latent axillary bud which may develop into new branches, and they may develop into new shoots after fire kills the older ones. Similarly, certain examples like Epibolium anguistifolium acts as a fire indicator species. It grows in patches and in dormant condition. In case of fire, these trees grow rapidly and other plants die due to fire. So we have discussed very important abiotic factors. You please make a note of them, make your own graphic note, and also try to see examples on your own, and you can discuss with me in our further interactions. Also try to see complete understanding of the topics, what happens due to water, what happens due to you know fire, what happens to soil and even examples from different states of India. And from the mains perspective also, you can understand that how the nature is being impacted because of the climate change and because of the rise in temperature. See you in the next session. Keep working, keep going on smartly, consistently, because there is no shortcut to success. It always comes up from inside when you have deep passion, clarity of thought, and a right path. That's what we try, and we commit ourselves to do so. Thank you very much for being part of Unsarkari.